Stephen, just over the past 24 hours, closer to home now, we've certainly seen a toughening of language when it comes to the government over its defence of Israel. How have you observed that change?
Well, I think it's been important at this time on the one-year anniversary of that massacre and atrocity. The stories we've just seen, you've just shown, need to be continually retold so that those who try and pretend that these atrocities didn't happen, those who try and downplay them, the unprovoked attacks, they're forced to confront them and forced to accept the barbaric acts undertaken by Hamas and its supporters. But it's been really important to send a message to the Australian Jewish community who have been targeted in a disgraceful way over the last 12 months by many in the community who have wanted to demean them and to blame them for, the Hamas attack effectively. I mean, to have Australians stand up and say that this was a good thing that happened, that this was an attack on a repressive regime, that this was a justified attack. The sort of stories you've just seen show that that is completely untrue and it must be rejected.
But these comments last night from Mark Butler are interesting because they're the most strident choice of words that I've seen come from this government for the past year. I mean, I'm wondering if it's too late, though.
I think the government has and the Prime Minister have had a consistent message that Israel have a right to defend themselves, that the attack was an atrocity, and now, particularly at this time around the one-year anniversary where debate continues to be as loud in our streets, it's important that the government send a very strong message that Israel have a right to defend itself from a terrorist backing regime like Iran, that Iran are the puppeteer of Hamas, of Hezbollah, that they don't care about the Palestinian cause. What they care about is the destruction of the state of Israel. So I think it is vitally important that message is sent by the government, and I think you've seen the Prime Minister in his statement yesterday, Mark Butler last night, Richard Marles over the weekend, all saying the same thing.
Yet social cohesion's still fraying, though, despite that. I mean, you've got those comments and stack that up against these comments in western parts of Sydney, even in Melbourne at the protests on the weekend that are basically celebrating October 7.
Yeah, no, and it's disgraceful. And I think Australians will increasingly begin to turn their back on this sort of foul language, the intimidation, the rolling intimidation across the streets of Sydney and Melbourne particularly, where Australian citizens of a Jewish background feel unsafe. They go to the CBD, they feel unsafe to send their kids unaccompanied to school. I think Australians will increasingly turn their back. I think it's incumbent on Labor voters to send the message very strongly that it is time to reject the support for terrorist and murdering regimes like Iran. I mean, when thousands of people are celebrating Iran, a repressive, brutal regime, you begin to see the masks stripped away from those who are pretending this is about a pro-Palestinian state and a pro-Palestinian outcome. And what they're really about is the destruction of the state of Israel under the auspices of Iran, under the auspices of their terror proxies in Hamas, the Houthis and Hezbollah. And I think Australians will increasingly turn their back on the sort of rallies and language you saw yesterday will diminish any support for the state, a two-state solution going forward.